Okay, good. Then the next thing is, ask for someone to move to approve the agenda. Move to approve the agenda.
I guess I'll second it.
And then I guess there's nobody left to object, so we'll consider that approved. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address this committee? Do you see anybody from the public on at all?
No, I just,
Okay, then we'll move on to the minutes. Bruce, did you review the minutes? I did. Deb, did you-
I'm second.
Okay, and again, notes that nobody left to disapprove. Okay, old business, so then we're on to the bylaws. Mr. Seth, can you move this up to the bylaws and let's just kind of go through this from the beginning. So if we could start, well, let's start on the first page. Which, did anyone find any changes you would like to make on this material on the first page? I think this is pretty solid. We're just going to go through this page by page. If we go to the second page, there's several things in here we need to look at. Under general powers, we had a note from the city attorney that the actual wording in the Title 40 was according to the best interest of the public health. And you see at the end of the paragraph on general powers, we have, or I have the sentence, at all times, the board shall exercise its authority with the goal of producing the best possible health outcomes for the citizens of Dewey and for the city visitors. If you didn't really say that that must be changed, but you flagged that that wasn't the exact wording of the Title 40. So what would the committee like to do?
Well, Chris, I sort of,
Since it comes directly from Title 40, I would be okay with it.
or a pen, or incorporating the public health, what is it, public health?
The only thing,
Because there's a difference between health outcomes and public health.
Public health restricts the word health. My personal opinion, I just simply the way it is. Throw that up there, but I'm listening for the will of the committee.
I'm going to let Chris be the tiebreaker. My opinion is that we should add public health to the existing language.
Okay, can you tell me where you would like, do you want the word public? Show me where exactly, how would you like it changed?
The original language.
according to the best interest of public health. Struck it.
I don't know if anybody, I mean, public health is different than health outcomes. Health outcomes is the people that we treat specifically. Public health is a broader topic, unless, would anybody correct me on that?
I agree.
So I'm not sure exactly how to word that, but the intent of the city is that we take a broader scope beyond our specific treatment that results in health outcomes. Chris, you're like, yeah, it's you and me and
I'm inclined to go back to 0112 and look again at the purpose of the hospital, which isn't it's not so finite that it's.
Anybody from staff have a suggestion on how to change this? We're spending a lot of time here on this one word. We've got a lot of work to do.
I think health outcomes incorporates public health.
I also think that in number 2 there on 012, it also says in the health in the community, which could also encompass.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to just hit delete on this. See what it tells me. Let's move,
Just like it, they revised it there.
Yeah, they can.
let's move on to,
I'm gonna start over that one.
let's move on to contracting authority. We have a note from the lawyer saying, maybe I'm just misreading this. Are you simply saying you can set the parameters for the CEO's contract authority? That's kind of a controversial use of the word parameters. If so, why use the term limit? As that actually limits your role. If you stated you may establish parameters for the CEO's contract, that would seem to give most flexibility. So in the 1970s, when computer programming first got started, the word parameters, which previously had been a technical term in physics and mathematics, and it meant the values that establish the state of a system, mathematical systems, they started getting used kind of like the word perimeter. So I definitely do not want to use the word parameters here as a synonym for perimeter. So anyway, her note is, maybe I'm just misreading this. Are you saying you can set the parameter of the CEO's contract authority? I think that's what we were trying to say. The board may also limit the CEO's authority. We're under the heading of contracting. Maybe the word contracting would add clarity.
Contracting or spending. The policy that approves the spending authority.
Would changing the word authority to contracting and spending, modifying it with contracting and spending, would that satisfy the
I
community?
think that's.
What is it? How does that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right, then I'm going to.
Shelley, do you need to, oh, I'm not the chair. Sorry. Let me sit back and quiet.
Shelley, were you trying to get her attention? Okay. The next page is legislative and evaluation. Are there any comments from the committee? Any comments from staff or other board members on this page? I think we're done with this one. Okay, then we're moving on to the next page. One that is now numbered 0430, term limits. Was some controversy about this. I think that we were asked to put in citations, so I thought I would just add CBJ 40.50.10. I'm sorry, 40.50.010, which is a reference back to.
I think her issue was that there are exceptions to there were 2 exceptions to the last sentence.
And are those exceptions if there are no qualified applicants at the time of reappointment is considered to the meeting? Oh, should we just add those?
I think that's what she's asking is for us to add those 2 exceptions.
Okay, I'm just going to copy those words. Well, I'll just figure out how to word that there are exceptions. Unless the committee wants to give me specific directions.
the only thing that I lean toward is adding the citation.
So I've added CBJ 40.50.010. Okay. Vacancy, anything to say about that?
I'm sorry, can you scroll that? Oh, you've added it on your copy.
I have it, yes. Yes.
Did you add with exception, with,
I'll figure out how to actually blend that in, but I just copied the words out of CBJ 40.
05, you said 50, I just want to make sure we're set.
It's true.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It is 0. Okay, vacancy, compensation, training. Speak up if you have anything. Stop me out. Officers. I don't think there's any. Committees. Committee functions. These we looked at last time. Board calendar. Parliamentary authority.
There was a note from Emily about, as long as you're okay with Robert's rules. If so, keep going, basically, is what she said in her comment. This is a fair enough. Parliamentary 0161.
Here's the next page.
Yeah, right.
and didn't she say that there is a hierarchy?
Yeah.
That,
The CBJ should basically be first and then Robert's rules next. She's saying. I'll read the assembly uses rules of procedure as a starting point, and then other rules are adopted. And then Robert's rules is last. Has having Robert's rules govern been a good fit for you all? If so, keep going. If not, you could look at relying on the assembly rules first. This is kind of one of those, if it's not broken. So we had to.
But anyway, I don't think the members of the hospital board know. I don't think members of the hospital board know those.
I do.
I don't either. I'm fine with Robert's rules.
Like I said, I think.
Shelley, are you? I gotta stop. Okay. Yeah, myself.
Shelley, do you have anything, would you like to add anything about Robert's rules?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Would staff like to chime in on this one? Yeah, I wouldn't want us to start adopting a bunch of rules we don't know. So I'm happy to move on. Okay. Where are we here? 064. Okay, Code of Ethics, executive session. Not saying anything. So I'm all the way up to 810 without singing that to myself. Okay, when we get to annual evaluation, I see another note. One thing to, and a note to us was, one thing to note, because I believe it came up with in the last few years, personnel actions regarding the CEO can only take place after consultation with the city manager. So that,
Which page are you on?
I am, well, I don't know the page, but I have 0840, section 0840. Yeah, so we're talking about the CEO's annual evaluation. Annually, frequently, the board, as the board deems necessary, the board shall review the performance of the CEO. The president of the board shall inform the CEO of the results of the evaluation. Minutes of the board meeting shall document the evaluation of the CEO. And she's saying because personnel actions regarding CEO can only take place after consultation with the city manager. I suppose a formal performance review is a personnel action. If she wanted to. Well, anyway. Does the committee have any recommendation on how to modify this?
I'm sorry, I'm a little lost. What page is this?
I don't know, but the
Of the package.
section is 0840, annual evaluation, and it's under the heading of hospital chief executive officer, 08.
Page 22 of the document and 24 of the packet. So I guess I would want a little bit more clarification on that one. If it's, does she need to see, or the attorney need to see the evaluation and approve the evaluation, or any personnel actions? Disciplinary, like a termination or a suspension or I'm unclear about that. I mean, could see where we would need to consult the attorney in the instance of a disciplinary action or some sort of.
It's coming back to me, my thinking, they didn't have recommended condition. Just a performance review is not really, I don't think, maybe correctly, the performance review is not a personnel action.
Not directly, but my question, I guess the larger question for me is, does it fall subject to what you guys have under 0730B, which is executive sessions, subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person, provided that person may request public discussion, whether or not the evaluation could be or should be conducted in executive session. I don't remember what the historical norm is for Bartlett.
My recollection is that we have not run the evaluation by the city attorney prior to giving the evaluation to the CEO.
One of the thoughts I had when I was just sitting here thinking about it by myself at home was, it's in addition to 0840, maybe putting in a 0845, which is personnel actions for the CEO. And then just say any personnel actions require consultation from the CEO. So I'm not sure if that's would satisfy it.
Can you say any personnel action resulting from evaluation shall be, inside the CBJ can?
Are you suggesting a different section of 0845, or are you just saying adding that to 0840?
Just add.
The will of the committee.
I just would like to go back and read what the citation is.
Right here.
Oh, no, that's what it means. The Title 45. Oh, do we have that? That's my.
Oh, you want that?
That's.
I've got it here. Listen. I'm reading from it. Personnel actions regarding the hospital administrator, including hiring, evaluation, discipline, termination, shall be after consultation with the city manager. Maybe we should just put those exact words in.
I mean, if that's what we're supposed to be doing, we should put it in our bylaws. In my knowledge, I don't think we shared with the evaluations with the city manager. But I could be wrong on that. Some may have.
Chris, are you good with that? Adding these words, personal actions regarding the hospital administrator, comma, including hiring, comma, evaluation, comma, discipline, comma, and termination, comma, shall be after consultation with the city manager.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Then let's move on. Medical staff organization bylaws. Oh, we'll get bonus points for anybody who found the mistake I induced in this section. Yeah, Joe, did you have a comment?
That I have to look into. It was in. Can't get the page away. Executive committee. We passed it. There was a reference that Emily had in the citation. I don't know if you read that.
Executive.
Executive session, sorry.
I'm going to miss so many of you.
Once, I think the original citation was 171.
Yeah, it's actually one more.
Go down.
Oh, yeah, I missed this. I would go cross-check CBJ 01.45. So people need to go to check right code. Where is she suggesting we put that?
Are we in executive session or motions and voting?
We're in motions and voting. We're at the very last sentence, the sentence, however, the motion to remove conflict de minimis is seconded and passed. The conflicted member may remain in discussion, but may not vote. I see. I snoozed through this. I would cross-reference CBJ 01.45. Oh, conflict of interest. I only see footnotes here, standards of conduct. Oh, I see. So I guess she's just saying CVJ 01.45. Just add that in. Am I reading that right?
This side, who's asking?
Where would I say that? A board with a declared conflict of interest, what I say? Right there.
Yeah, it's either right there or at the very end. It says, do my 2 cents on it.
So 01 is the standards of conduct article.
Okay, so then if I'm following along, under motions and voting, under item number 2, I'm gonna put CBJ 01.5 after the word interest. If that's a little clear. See what I'm saying? They're under motions and voting 2, a board member with a declared conflict of interest. Add the citation CBJ 01.45. Is that consistent with your wishes?
That's fine with me.
Okay. And then, Chris, and then, let's see, is there another thing of Emily's that I sneezed here?
Yeah. Put on it, you know, we started to
Which one is that? Oh, that's under
Under executive session.
executive session. Yeah, I'm in her. I'm in her. I don't see it on that.
But tell me, we're not starting the language that we discussed. Basically.
You're required under the OMA to provide an opportunity for the person to request public discussion. Not recommend deletion of this language. Make a copy.
Why am I not seeing that? Moment on my page?
Do you scroll up from here? Oh, sorry, scroll down.
Okay, so show me again, where is it?
Right there.
Fine.
Number 2 is where that's where her note points to.
Okay, thank you.
This is here.
Is this your copy or is this her copy?
This is the official copy. No, that's her copy. Go back and forth. Yeah, here's the one that I'm keeping track of everything. Should be executive session. The executive subject that we discussed tend to prejudice the reputation here. Show regard to this litigation. So what would you, what should we put?
Basically keep what we had in it before.
You need to see that.
Yeah. Somehow I'm looking at this.
Might have been a
That I received, but I don't agree now.
It's find out text here. She's referring
That person. And the opportunity for the person who goes to public discussion. Having a little bit of trouble because I keep going back and forth. Why am I having such a hard, oh, I see. We have, can we go up to the number? She wants, let's see, I'm confused. She wants this comment. She wants the wording to go back to, and that's an item 2, right? Okay, look up at the lettered items. The following subjects may be considered in executive session. Matters, subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation, character of any person, provided that person may request a public discussion. So I think we already have those words in there. We already have those words.
What you're saying?
I would, because we have separated down below, we say we're going to give them notice. Don't we?
Okay, so in item 2, any executive session where the subject to be discussed tends to prejudice the reputation and character of any person shall require advance notification of that person.
So I guess we either put combine B and 2 up in B or combine the same.
Okay, but what we have up above are the reasons, are the things that we can discuss. So if we take this out of there and move it somewhere else, because then we'll have to take out the list of things that could be considered so in executive session.
I see your logic out, and I would almost, not that we want to do back and forth, but I would almost ask for clarification that because it's specifically noted in B, is it necessary to revert that text back? Because I follow your logic.
Yeah, so letter things are the things that can be discussed in executive session. Item 2 is just noticing at the board that if you're going to talk about something in executive session, you have to notify.
I really don't want to wordsmith, but I'm going to make a suggestion. If we're going to put it, if the reference, I would amend B to say, provided that the person be given advance notification and the opportunity to request a public discussion,
Okay,
and take out 2 altogether.
Take out 2.
and I'm fine with that, but I'm just going to point out that the list is just a list of things that can be discussed in executive session. So that's a little bit out of place because it's,
Well, so is the provided.
how about taking the provided and just adding it to 2 as well? And then being redundant.
Works for me. Works for me.
That's fine.
Okay, so now 2 will read. Any executive session where the subject to be discussed tends to prejudice the reputation, character of any person shall require advance notification of that person, comma, and provided. Does that work? By that person? Yeah. Okay. Next case. All right. So now I'm zooming along here. I'm at official minutes. Don't see anything controversial there. Chief Executive Officer. We've already discussed under annual evaluation, we added the words personnel actions regarding hospital administrator, including hiring, evaluation, discipline, and termination shall be after consultation with city manager. On the medical staff bylaws. When I renumbered these, I induced an error here. 0940, did anybody else catch that?
65034.
Okay, reapplication denial, board obligation, medical staff. Oh, wait a minute, what happened to?
So that should be 0930 is what you're saying.
Correct, yeah. Wait a minute, what happened to the, I had that highlighted. Oh, maybe that's procedures where I'm remembering this stuff about having to notify by me, by registered mail. Okay, that's in the procedures. Okay, so we've gone through this. I will now kind of open it back up for any other comments or changes or suggestions. Now that we've refreshed everybody. Should we consider this completed, subject to any other minor little editorial things I find in that section? Okay, should I just hit save on this? I'm gonna call it version 10. And I will try to get Wednesday or Thursday, I'll just clean this up and make sure all the fonts are the same. Rebuild the index and give this to you. Okay, what's next? Board policy manual. So what I'm going to suggest we do is go through this. Well, let me be last bit. What's the urgency of this?
There isn't an urgency on it. We do not need to pass it today. We can, if there's anything from my perspective, there's no urgency from my perspective. We're not, it's not dependent on assembly approval. We have some time to mull it over. The action that I would take today is maybe to hit the highlights of changes, because we're missing Lisa as well in this conversation. Lisa's had an opportunity, at least one opportunity already to weigh in on the bylaws, but
So then, would everybody be happy with completing our work on it at our next meeting? Before we get on to the board. Good, then let's just go through and hit the things I've got notes on. I think that's in your packet. Let's go through. Well, first of all, let me say, are there any general comments, stylistic comments, any thoughts from committee members, staff, or other board members?
Seeing that this is my first contact with this, I'll put it that way. There's a lot here. And as I go through what was the track change version that's in our packet, I find it difficult to follow what's, there's a lot of formatting changes, but I'm looking, formatting aside, which is important, I get. But what are the highlights? What are these highlights?
Well, if that's a question to me, when I went through it, I saw lots of punctuation errors, even spelling errors where the word was correctly spelled, but it was just the wrong word. There was lots of capitalization errors. There was a lot of just lack of clarity. And so I tried to just put it all, and you could see that it had been just cobbled together, where it would be one person's style and then it was somebody else's style. I tried to put it all in a single voice, sort of correct some things that I just saw as errors.
Mr. Chair, I have a recommendation for our review, is to save a copy in which you have accepted all of the grammatical changes, the spelling, the capitalization, the punctuation, so we don't have, just accept the change of the formatting changes. And then we're just looking at the substantive changes in our next.
I don't know how to separate.
Well, you do, it's a pain in the,
Oh, I see. You want me to go through it? And yeah, I see.
it's a pain, but it's not a conversation piece for us. We're really trusting.
So what I did, I figured people could just turn off the display of track changes. I made notes to myself where I thought there was a controversy, and I thought we'd just go through those. Or there was some.
He said he made notes to himself.
Just
In the document or somewhere else?
In here, I have notes to myself to bring things to the committee. And I think everywhere you see something highlighted yellow, that would be a good example. So if we're just going through, if we're just going through zooming through this, you'll come to 0250 and item number 3, that's all in yellow. But that is something that this committee needs to discuss before we vote this on. So if we could go to, if we zoom ahead to 0250. This is an example.
Just a note for you, Howard, 0250, number 1,
And two,
and 2, AshNet is now,
Okay.
they've renamed it.
it's HHA. It's the Alaska Hospital
Healthcare.
Association.
And where else do we have? Just one.
Into,
The number 1 and number 2, that section.
Okay, so I got the Alaska. Is it still called, is it, did they get rid of the word state?
Yeah, it's just off on
Alaska Hospital.
Hospital Healthcare Association.
Okay, but you'll see number 3, that there is some quite serious problem with the wording that we had there. So I'm bringing that to the committee. We need to talk about this a little bit. So this was my attempt to kind of improve it a little bit, but it's not sufficient. So what it literally had said before is that a mother couldn't go down to the city and testify about, or go to maybe a hearing on school funding and speak on that issue of school funding without getting approval from the board. It's incorrect, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there. There's a lot of changes. If you're just going to trust me, then trust me on them until we get to these ones in color. If you want, I hope that you would read the ones that the rest and think, well, I don't want that policy. Well, what are we going to do with this one?
Guess my concern is something when I get requests to go present to the legislative body, it's usually that.
Yeah.
My one example was Jeanette, I think it was the last go around, Jeanette said, hey, they've asked me to go testify on this bill. Are you okay with it? I told her yes. And so as those things come up, this structure would never allow me time to get the form to. I might be able to get the president to approve something, but that makes sense.
Yes.
If I have to wait for the next month to get a meeting in order to get approval for something, we're never testifying.
So if I was starting all over, I would say it'd be our policy that the CEO, well, no part of the hospital, I did make some changes here, other than the CEO or his or her designee shall speak for the hospital. So,
Would my designee be anyone that came to me and asked for approval to go to these?
or if you just say, you're going down to testify, I can't do that, Aaron, will you go speak on my behalf on this matter? And yeah, anybody that you would send off to somewhere to speak on behalf of the hospital.
we really haven't been followed. I mean, the original language is just as restrictive. And we haven't been following that either, so.
So I'm suggesting that we give this, that we do not ask the CEO to do this. And I'm asking we do not ask the CEO, do we not restrict the CEO if he or she designates a particular person to speak on behalf of the hospital? Something, that's one part of it. The other, all this stuff about permission, well,
Get rid of that, do that first thing. and that's what goes away.
No Bartlett Hospital employee other than the CEO or his or her designee shall speak for the hospital or identify as a hospital employee before any legislative body without receiving prior permission from the board of directors. That would be my recommendation. And that's quite different than what was in the report. I think I might even ask to leave in the last sentence. This policy is not intended to limit an employee's right to speak as a private citizen as long as the employee does not identify himself. Just
Just a question, Chair, were you leaving in that no, the CEO or his or designees shall speak to the hospital, identify as hospital employee without receiving prior permission from the board of directors?
no hospital employee other than the CEO or his or her designee.
Other than,
So the CEO, so my intent would be that the board would trust the CEO and would trust the CEO to designate someone else to go speak on a specific topic. Presumably the CEO and the employee discussed.
I'm fine with that, and I think that's a very logical suggested change. The only thing that stands out to me is the last sentence in the green, and whether or not, was that your discretion to strike that? And if it needs to be,
That's all stuff left over from.
that's all old stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, then, never mind.
What do you think? The proposals to strike the words, the sentence starting with permission must be requested. The sentence that says the employee's request for permission. And the sentence that this request must also include. And then leave in, this policy is not intended to limit an employee's right to speak as a private citizen. Okay, anything on 0310? There's still some formatting problems. 0320? What did we use? I think when we get to 0420, we need some assistance here. 0420.
I can talk to the process for this one, if that's okay.
Oh, please.
So what we've done in the past, and up till now, the board made a motion in the past that we would reserve up to any month's depreciation, which is the allowable for Medicare.
Sorry, how many months?
I don't know, it was years ago.
Oh, okay, so I misunderstood you then. I think you said you reserve up to, and then I think.
That month's depreciation. So every month we take the depreciation and move it into the capital reserve fund. So that's the limit set by Medicare. You can only set aside as much as your maximum depreciation per year. So that's our limit. And then the board at some point in the past, I think it was 2018, made a motion that was going to be our limit before. We've never changed that. So we're not following this policy as is.
So what would you like to see? What would be your suggestion for you? Or how about this? Would you, just so we don't burn up time needlessly here? Yeah. Is that sufficient good?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just look at it.
Okay. How about capital budget, operating budget? Shouldn't there be something here? Deb, do you have any thoughts on the operating budget?
Well, I mean, we mentioned that the capital budget, I mean, we need to say that the staff will, leadership or staff, CEO, whoever, CFO will present a budget for the board's approval prior to submission to the assembly. And it doesn't even need to say prior to submission to the assembly, but we do need to. If we've got capital budget in there, we need to address operating budget.
Is that all that we need, just a one simple sentence?
I don't know why it would be a simple is better.
Unless we want to do a reference to that it needs to be reviewed by the finance committee before it comes up to the full board.
It's stated in the bylaws. It's stated in the bylaws already.
The budget is,
To me, this is redundant because it's stated in the bylaws that part of the finance committee's duties, right, and the board's duties.
Okay.
I don't know why operating or capital budget would be in the policies, would strike them both.
then I would agree with that if it's in the.
Okay. Okay, so the proposal then is to strike 0425 and 0430. Is that direction for me, or is that just something for us to discuss? Listing for the committees.
Yeah, given the consideration that it's covered in bylaws, I don't know. I think it's complicated.
Okay, I'm hitting the delete to somebody stops. All right, board of directors travels and reimbursement bus. Boy, this is a lot of material, in our policy. This is more or less what was in there before with a few corrections. Need all this stuff. I'm guessing it's been here in so much detail because there's been some problems in the past. Direction for me on this?
I mean, it's a single, looks like there's a single sentence in there, and I think that covers it.
Single sentence.
Distinct enough.
Which sentence are you?
Reading through the strike throughs and everything, I think your wordsmithing captures.
There's a lot of stuff in there. One of the things that I completely changed to make it a little more modern, travel with spouse is what was in there before. But then people might travel with another traveler. I made that change.
Well, I think, I mean, what it looks like to me is it just reads, it is the policy of Bartlett Regional Hospital to reimburse members of the board of directors for all usual and reasonable travel and other expenses made on behalf of the board if the travel has been previously approved by the board and the CEO, period.
So what about cash advance, travel arrangements, modes of
All that stuff can go away.
lodging, meals, other expenses, travel with spouse or companion? Okay, let's go with that. So if I'm following along, I'm ready to hit it, delete all the way down to 7.
Can I make a recommendation? Okay. So what do you say on behalf of the board, if the travel has been previously approved? Can we say on behalf of the board, if the expense has been previously approved? Because if you guys go pay for something else and we're trying to reimburse travel or any other expense. Because you were saying we can only expense for travel, and the second piece, we're paying for travel and other expenses.
It is the policy of Barton Regional to reimburse members of the board for all usual and reasonable travel and other expenses made on behalf of the board. If the travel has previously, I'm sorry,
Travel and expenses.
Travel and expenses.
Yeah.
I could turn travel to expense because travel is just an expense. And it just makes it more general.
has been previously approved by the board. Okay, so then the suggestion is delete 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down to 7. Travel, spouse, and companion. Non-reimbursable expenses. Okay, so then we don't need that. How about expense report? Should I leave in item 9? From the new one.
Does, I think the city code prohibit certain reimbursement for certain expenses. Alcohol, I think, is one of them.
We have policies that cover that too. Hospital policies that cover reasonable expenses, which are on CBJ policy.
Let's incorporate it by reference then.
We know the CBG.
I can look at the hospital policy too. I don't know you want to reference hospital policy or CBJ policy.
Well, let's reference the hospital policy if,
I can pull the hospital policy and bring it back or send it to you for reference.
okay.
That should cover all these things.
Is the committee fine with that? Okay. Then I'm suggesting leaving on what was 9, now becomes 1, which is expense report. Barton Regional Hospital expense reimbursement report in italics should be completed by the director and submitted within a reasonable time, normally 10 working days following completion. Receipt shall be attached, so on and so forth. And then number 2, expense report must be signed by both the director, submitting the report, and the CEO. Everybody happy with that?
Just ask a point of clarification. So when it says that by the director submitting the report and the CEO, does that mean like our directors?
Board of directors.
Board of directors.
Would be a director. So anyone on the board of directors would be a director. Okay, 0450 is a policy that we just approved as a board, but I made certain editorial changes to make it in the same voice that what we've had before. Any controversy or suggestions on this? Okay, is going on to 0510 CEO duties to the board of directors. Okay, so annual evaluation, we've already said we want to put in something in there about coordinating with the I'll look at what we did with the bylaws and make some change there. Or rather, another direction.
Is that just redundant? Less though, why would you have an existing bill? Evaluation, I think.
Do we need it? Should we just take it out? It was in there before.
I don't think we needed it.
We moved it to,
Yeah, I don't think we need it since it's in there.
okay, hit delete. Criteria for evaluation. We don't have this in the. Happy with this?
Yeah, criteria for evaluation.
CEO's interim coverage, this is all stuff that was in there before. When we get to 0560 physician recruitment plan, this is considerably changed from what was in there before. And this pretty much just turns this over to the CEO. I think before, in the policies, before we had a bunch of stuff about a committee and did everybody look at the changes to this? 10560. So this one definitely needs attention.
We used to have a recruitment committee, which we don't have anymore.
So the proposal is to greatly simplify this and more or less just turn this over to CEO. Any comments from committee members or staff or other board members? What board member? Okay, we'll have another chance to think that through, but that's what I'm going to recommend. Then moving along to medical staff, definitely want to point your attention to 0630. We have talking here about certified mail return receipt requested. Do we still need in this century to be doing it that way? Maybe we do.
Does medical staff send anything by certified mail?
I would imagine they probably do. Do they do it all?
Only certain things are sent, very, very little is
That's what I thought.
reduced.
The paper.
Most of them are done through their credentialing process, their software now.
Is there any like history? What's the general knowledge there?
And then I was just gonna ask, do we actually need this in the board's policy? Because it's in the med staff bylaws,
Which the board ultimately approves.
right?
Yeah, I don't know that.
This is the board piece.
What it does is limit the flexibility of the medical staff support folks to change with the times, the technology.
How about this? The hospital CEO shall communicate a notice of any appointment decision made by the board to the affected applicant or medical staff member within 10 days of decision period. And then retain the sentence, notice of board appointments shall be sent to the hospital chief of staff within 10 days of decision. Take out the references to how to communicate.
Can I make a comment? Sorry.
Yes, please
Chair.
do.
It appears that the first bullet point, the hospital CEO shall communicate notice of any such action, assuming that could be positive or negative, when it was changed to simply an appointment. Is that incorrect? Am I reading that incorrectly?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, the hospital shall communicate any appointment decision. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood what you were saying. Can you,
So sorry, it appears that the initial verbiage, such action or decision, was broader. It could be potentially the board saying you are no longer allowed to work here versus just you are allowed to work here. Appointment, which is not, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you look at the top where it says 6-0, it's notice to medical staff of board action or decision.
Any appointment decision,
An
appointment
appointment would
decision can
be-
be positive or negative.
Right. So these are things that are elevated to the board for decision. So usually it's in that subsection of the medical bylaws that it would revert up to board level.
Review these in relation to the med staff bylaws to make sure there's not duplication between the two sets of rules. If that makes sense.
okay,
It probably covers this extra whole thing.
Yeah. I agree with that, Jeff.
okay, so we'll just put this on ice then. So that's, maybe that's all we really need to do with the policy this time. Let's go through this again next time. Look over anything, comb through and find anything you would like to see changed next time we report it on Tuesday. Or after our next meeting. Okay, that moves us on to self-examination. Did you all look over what I sent out? Any comments?
It was short.
I'm sorry.
I appreciated the brevity.
Thank you. So it is to re-plow the field from last time. The intent wasn't just brevity, but the intent was to have something that we could turn into recommendations quickly and simply. But it was built around the thought of developing recommendations. I have no real attachment to any of these questions. I'd be happy to see the attention to other questions. I'd like to see suggestions on different formats or
I think you just have, it says, please be honest and pleases. Instead of please be honest and please be fair.
oh. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sure there's scribbles. Please.
From an accreditation perspective, we are required to do a board self-evaluation. But is there any guidance as to what it needs to address specifically? That you guys recall? I don't know. I don't remember seeing anything, but
I can get back to you on that, Deb. I don't
Wanna make sure that we're
I can look at the standards.
That's the one thing I thought of after reading it.
Is there any, well, first, I would think we need to establish, is this sort of what we want to do or not?
I appreciated the board does this first and then it's followed by, like we have it, the senior leaders, executive committee, that's right. I think it's important to get those voices incorporated somehow into this evaluation. So I appreciate seeing.
I think my intention wasn't just simply to give them voices, but to have a basis for comparison. When I look at when I remember the last one that we did, I didn't think was very good. It was just, the board thought 13% of something was something. There was no ground truth. There was no way to really tell. There was no comparison. So if the board thinks we're doing great and everybody else doesn't, then that comparison is really important. If the board thinks we're doing great and some people agree and other people don't, but then that's important information. It should go into the recommendation. Is how I thought of it. Are there any comments from staff about this as a form of board self-evaluation?
If it pleases the board, we could build something internally to house the responses and the data, so you can trend it year over year, rather than just a paper document.
Deb, do you have any thoughts?
I'm still mulling it over. I mean, I'm in agreement with you that Vaughn check boxes with numbers. Selection are not my favorite thing. They're easy, but they, if you're in a hurry, you're trying to check off your to-do list for the day. And Anita has emailed me 3 times to remind you that you have done it. It's easy to put less thought into it. So this type of tool is more meaningful and requires potentially more thought. However, the larger tools bring up things that if you're looking at from your own, from my vantage, I might not think to put in something else that's included in a tool with more questions, I guess. So that's why what I'm saying is that's why I'm still mulling over what the final product is going to look like.
Okay, and of course, we don't have to make any decisions this day. Deb and I talked a little bit about this. I would recommend that we do this maybe, sometime in the fall. And then in time so that we can have a summary for our last meeting. And at our last meeting, we'll develop a series of recommendations for the board. So maybe we've done enough on this today. We're out of time.
Through the chair,
Yes.
could I the only one thing I would add in there is something about, we talk about improve the relationships among our board members, with the community. I think there should be something in there with senior leadership, because we work so directly with them in all of this process.
Okay.
And that's my only comment.
Any thoughts from the hospital leaders that are here?
I would just like to see something that's adopted that trend year to year, because I think the board has done a different one every year and we get trend over the course of years. I mean, it's nice to have individual comments, but we're not seeing trends.
Well, I think that's a good point, and that points out to the need for this committee to be sure we're focused on the right questions. So that next year, we don't think we wished we had asked every questions and then change it. So these are just, the questions that are here now are just straw persons for the committee to make changes with.
Having just come from a conversation about dashboards, this will be difficult to dashboard and turn into an A3, you know, a board personal A3. So.
You drink the Kool-Aid.
Makes me so happy.
I mean, not that the board will agree to that, but.
Okay, well, we're running out of time. Any other specific suggestions on this? We'll revisit this in our next meeting. Okay. New business, CEO evaluation. So we're supposed to be doing something with the CEO evaluation, but we haven't got really a basis for a CEO evaluation. So I talked to Joe about that very briefly. What do you think we should be using as a basis for our evaluation?
Well,
What have you been given? You would,
so it's kind of what I was given was just a list of tasks, basically, being handed out. As I've actually put some thought about into this. And it's I mean, in my mind, the strategic plan should be what my goals are, super high level goals. So that'd be something like as we go through the strategic plan presentation here, look at all those goals we have set up there. It'd be maybe a subset of those used to measure. The strategic plan is my goal. That's how I measure myself. But that's what I use to make decisions. About 2 cents. I do have some other stuff more specific on here. I'm happy to share all this. But a lot of this would come from the strategic plan. These are just kind of the ones that I prioritize. Whether my priorities is the same as the board.
so, well, committee members, what are we going to do?
Well, I think, I know Joe and I have talked about this, and I think I might have mentioned it to you that we're a little late to the party giving Joe goals, other than the task list that he received in the transfer. So I think that the place for this group and the board to start is what are our expectations? Because that was never presented to the board in this handoff. So I'd start there before we start on the CEO evaluation. And we've got some time.
It's kind of late for us to give them expectations for all the way.
Yes, but as part of this process, we need to determine what our expectations are. We wouldn't want to evaluate him for, the less than 6 months by the time we figure out what the goals are. But as part of this process, we need to determine what the goals are and what the evaluation is going to look like based on those goals.
Well, how is this for a suggestion? You said you'd be willing to route, you've got kind of bullets of what you've been thinking. We're supposed to be, I believe it's going to be quarterly. We're moving at a faster pace than that. We need more. How about meeting again in a couple of months? And could we go into executive session to talk about that a bit? About what some of this should not be talked about in executive session, should it?
No, I don't think. our expectations of the CEO is not
Yeah.
an executive session topic. If we were to specifically address Joe's performance today or, there's certain aspects of it that we could discuss, but at a high level of expectations.
Okay, so what do you think? Should we get together in a couple of months and let's these things that you're discussing? But then we should also start at the same time, same meeting, talking a little bit about what we're going to say about some of these things. But you will send out that outline, and that will become form some of the basis for discussion for the water. That's
So, I think at our December meeting, we approved a cadence. I thought we had in the 4 quarters, we had 4 topics that we were going to cover. We were going to do the bylaws in the first quarter. This was before the committee changed. Bylaws were going to be in the first quarter. I can't remember if it was the board's self-evaluation was the second quarter. So I'd like to go figure out what we approved as a committee.
Okay.
To and figure out within those quarters how many meetings we need to have to accomplish it.
Okay. So I'll send out something. I'll review that and get back. But the things that we have left to do, we've dealt with the bylaws, we've dealt with the policy. We're working on, we're up to date on the, I think we're on track for the board self-evaluations. That's going to be later in the year. So we need to talk about the CEO evaluation and the board training plan. Those are the things that have been on my, foremost of my mind. I'll go back and review the cadence and think about meetings. But that brings us to board training plan. We need to do something with that. We need to develop a plan this year. And so part of that is going to be topics, of course. And then the other part is going to be methods. How are we going to do it? And I know from my time working on developing scientific meetings, you can have a really good topic, but if you don't have any way you don't have anybody to talk about it, you don't have any good training opportunities with it, that's a bad thing to go through. So we have all kinds of topics. We have legal topics, compliance topics. There's going to separately be compliance training, I'm sure. There's overlap with just things boards needs to know. Maybe I'll start by asking staff, what do you think we should be looking at as far as topics?
Well, there's quite a few topics, I think. I think probably a big one that this year probably going to come up is cybersecurity in our organization. Another one I'm working on already is a presentation on presenting data to the board. I'm already working on that with someone to do a presentation on how to present data that's not just raw data to the board and meaningful data. Shelley and I are working on Thursday's meeting, we're going to be working on compliance risk and risk assessment. So that's in the Thursday compliance quality meeting. That's the education topic for that meeting. So I think there are some topics already coming through the pipeline this year. So I think we could probably sit down and Joe, that's probably a topic we can probably put in our one-to-one to come out with a list of things that I think you have ideas for too.
Cybersecurity is gonna be the big one.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of having staff. Yeah, put together the training topics and then maybe the training delivery methods too. Then have us just comment on them, tweak them a little bit. What do committee members think?
I think that's a good idea because they're close to.
You're already talking about topics that I think that have been heard for a long time are important.
I'm also glad to hear that we're finally talking about the broader risk management topics that we have. As I said before, with the compliance committee in its previous incarnation focused solely on not so much risk, but very specific following federal regulations and federal and state regulations rather than the broader aspects of risks to the hospital.
Well, okay, I think that brings us to the end of new business. Are there any comments, questions from the committee? Any comments or questions from members of staff or other board members? Anybody want to say anything? Okay, well, thanks so much for putting up with all the tedium on the bylaws and the policy. We'll forward that on full board, and we'll forward the bylaws on the full board. The next meeting.
Hopefully next year's review will be just a review.
And I guess we're at the point we're adjourned.
Thanks.